I'm going to call the meeting to order. We're going to start with a salute to the flag and a moment of silence, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Curry?
Mr. Talty?
Yes, I'm here.
Mr. Conti?
Here.
Ms. Cusinelli?
Here.
Mr. Finucci?
Here.
Ms. Scudder? Mr. Reed?
Here.
Ms. Cantillo?
Here. Mr. Edwards?
The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Brick Township Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be posted on the Administrative Office Bulletin Board, the official district website, and Channel B TV 20, and sent to the Asbury Park Press, the Brick Times, the Star Ledger, and Municipal Clerk's Office.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. The purpose for our meeting tonight is to receive information on energy savings improvement plans. And at this point, who's going to go first? Mr. Mercer. Welcome, Mr. Mercer.
I believe most of you know me, but for those who don't, my name is Ed Mercer from the Board of Public Utilities. I'm the State Energy Manager. I am also a Brick resident. Just want to give you a little background first before we go into our presentation. The initial law, Energy Savings Improvement Program, ESIP as we call it, was passed in 2009, signed into law in January of 2009. The first couple of years, there were a number of the ESCOs playing some games with some architects in the industry, and it led to a change in the law in 2012. At that point in time, one of the big issues was the actual enforcement of the law. There was no enforcement provision in the original statute. That has been changed. The enforcement statute lies with my office. We become the judge and jury of these particular programs. So the way it works is that you must put out an RFP for your services. Once you receive that, you use our standard RFP. Once you receive that, then your bids will be analyzed, and before you make an award, you would have to send that information to us for approval. You make your award and you select your contractor, and the contractor must prepare what's called an energy savings plan, or an ESP, and then they must submit that for our approval. So there's a step-by-step procedure, and I have a handout here which I'll give to the board president. And as part of this process, we also hold stakeholder meetings with the energy service companies themselves. And because of some of the gaming that's gone on in the past, we were required with the revised law in 2012 to adopt guidelines. We held a stakeholder meeting in October of 2012, and we adopted the final set of guidelines in June of this year. The way the law reads, any project that goes on the street must comply with the law as of September of 2012. So we'll go into the program, but I want to give the board president the procedure, which is a simple step-by-step program. You can make copies for the board members if necessary. I'm sorry for the lateness of this. And for council, I have
Thank you, Mr. Mercer.
interpretation of the law, which verifies that we have the ability for enforcement. With that, I will turn it over to Michael. He will do the presentation, and if you have any questions, we'll be here afterwards.
I feel like good cop, bad cop here. He's the bad cop. I'm going to hand out a flyer that my job basically on a daily basis is to go across the state and talk about the Energy Savings Improvement Program and what it does and how it helps and doesn't help and all that good stuff. So these are flyers that we've been handing out all over the state. They're very quick and concise on the front. On the back page are the 20 points of what Ed was just talking about, which we had to make sure that everybody was playing by the same rules. So that's basically a quick rundown of the whole project, but I want to take you through my presentation that I go through just about every other day with folks. So what's it all about? Retrofitting old buildings is basically what it's about. And what we want to do is not go out and borrow any extra money here, as you would for a regular capital project. What you have an opportunity here is to actually use your electric and your gas bills to pay for these energy savings or energy conservation measures. You're not going out for any additional funding. You do end up borrowing money or getting a lease to do the actual work, but when you're borrowing the money, it's what we call a
Excuse me, Mr. Tulane, he's...
and/or to lease, okay? So, and it's all government entities. So let's talk about government entities. Municipalities, school districts, housing authorities, colleges, universities, all of these are fit underneath this law. What are we talking about? Distributed generation. Now, one of the neat things that I've been involved in since the hurricane is hazard mitigation program, and what we've been talking about is actually making islands out there in the world and how we can keep the power on the next time. As an example, right here at the Memorial High School, we had solar panels out there, and we're trying to keep the generator running 3 days later because it just didn't want to run anymore. So what we want to do in the future, when we can get grant money, and that grant money can go into this funding, if we can get it, is battery backup, maybe the possibility of putting in a transfer switch on there so the next time the power goes down, the power stays on in the school. Those are the types of possibilities that involving this type of an ESA program. Energy efficiencies, demand response. Electricity actually goes up in value, up and down during the day. In the summertime, you have a big surge of cost for air conditioning. In Howell Township, they actually have thermal storage up there. So they make ice during the night, and then in the day, they use that ice to actually cool the building off with their coolers. So there's a lot of different opportunities here, and that's what's important about looking at energy savings. Demand response also is if you can generate your own electricity or shut it down in the summertime, the electric company will actually, well, not the electric company, PJM will actually give you money, and you can make money by generating your own power. And we'll talk about that in a little bit too. Windows, trying to keep your the energy savings by changing out your windows is another opportunity with the building envelope. Doors. All of these things are obviously everybody knows about the lighting, air conditioning, so on and so forth. Water savings is another issue. Actually, what Doc was talking earlier about Perth Amboy. The Housing Authority of Perth Amboy had one boiler in the center of all of their buildings. With the ESIP program that they did, they changed it out to put boilers in each of the buildings. Saved $100,000 a year so that they could do all new work besides the changing out the boiler system. So, and that's an ESIP program that they did there. So give you an idea of the different things that we talk about. We're not just talking energy, we can do water as well. Start out with an energy audit, which you folks have already done. A lot of towns haven't done it yet. There's over 350 towns in the state that have already done the energy audit. More are continuing on a daily basis. The concept there is it's free, and it's an opportunity to find out exactly what you can see. And I'm sure you folks have already looked at that. Okay. There's 3 different models that we like to push under this legislation, and the ESCO is one of them. And that's where you folks started out over a year ago. The ESCO plan is you basically go out, like Ed said, you're going to have an RFP. You're going to have that energy services company come out and give you a price. In your particular circumstance, you had 5 different companies work up some prices for you. After you look at those prices, you interview them. I don't know who was involved in the interview the last time, but the concept is for the board, facilities managers, the BAs and superintendents, if they have the time, to sit down with these folks and actually find out from them where they're getting their energy savings from. Some of it's that demand response we talked about before. Some of it is by changing out new equipment. But you need to find out from them and feel comfortable with them where they're going to get those savings from, because you're going to be working with them for the next year, year and a half to do the work, and that savings that you're looking for, you have to feel comfortable with throughout your project. Plan B is to hire an energy consultant and do it yourself.
Yeah, it's mine.
And when you do it yourself, you're actually hiring an architect just like you did any other capital project out there. That architect, engineer, mechanical engineer, whoever you decide to work with, cannot give you a guarantee. On the other side of it, though, that ESCO that we talked about before, by the law, has to offer you that guarantee. We'll talk about that at the end of my process. This is the one I like the best. And I was talking to Doc also earlier. Today, I was at Newark Board of Education. It took them a year, but they finally got to the point today that they had their pre-bid, and they're going to bid out on January the 14th will be the bid date. In their particular circumstance, they hired a company called Falcon Engineering, and that engineer will be their guide through the whole process. They pay that engineer to help them decide what's going on, who's telling what they should be doing and what they haven't done yet. The important part about that is well, how do I pay for that engineer? When you're doing this ESIP program, the ESIP program is merely a funding process. It doesn't have to be anything other than knowing that you're going to be able to fund this through my energy savings. That's it. So it's a capital project, and it's a funding mechanism. So that engineer that you hire to help you, the bonding agent that you help to hire, the attorney that you end up helping you do all the bonding work, and all of that can be encompassed in this funding program. Okay, so here's your steps. Do the audit, what you've already done. Hire an ESCO, develop an energy savings plan. That energy savings plan does not come out until after you've decided which ESCO you've decided to work with, and they work up an energy savings plan that you agree with. So it's kind of like looking at a Chinese menu when you're ready to go to work here. You're actually going to go down it and say, what happens when, it's not an example for here, but what happens when I decide to heat the pool because it's been cold all this time? Well, that knocks me out of my 15 year. Now I'm at 16 or 17 year. Okay, scratch that. What happens if I air condition the gym? Because Ocean Township, as an example, never had air conditioning in their gym. But they decided that after years of having graduations in that gym, if we can find the savings, let's put it in there. So that's what they did. They actually used that savings. So it's a matter of going through this program with your contractor and deciding what you want to do and how it's going to work out financially. When you come to that conclusion and say, this is it, this is my job, that's when you're going to send it back down to me and I'll approve it or disapprove it. While you're doing that, though, I'm not the final say. You need to hire a third-party independent guy, auditor, to also agree with the plan that you've come up with. So, how do I put this? You have your energy savings plan. You have the auditor approve it, send it down to us to make sure that it's okay. So I think what I'm getting across to you is it's a process. No doubt it's a process. These are the types of things that we at the BPU can give you additional grant money. Generally in the first year or two, there's just not enough cash to make this thing work. And if you notice on my handout, it has to be positive cash flow for the whole time period. That's very important. So when we start giving out grant money for heating, cooling, lighting, controls, you start looking at your boiler systems. Not only do you have to worry about that new boiler that you're talking about, but you have pumps that are pumping that hot water throughout the entire place. there's money available from the BPU to help you make it through that first 2 years, that grant money. And then from there, it should literally carry itself. This is getting old, but the fact of the matter is because we're in the zip code that we're at, there's quite a few of our rebates and our incentives that are doubled because we are in the right zip code here in Brick. I think I just said that. Pay performance direct install combined heat and power fuel cells. Let's talk about that a little bit. Pay performance is literally a program that we say that if you can save 15% in your energy costs, we've got a grant up to $1 million for electric and another $1 million for gas on each building. That's quite a bit of money.
Oh, for here. it
Up
is.
to that. Not all of it, but my point is it's available. Direct install. Part of the do-it-yourself program that a lot of school systems have done through our other incentives that we have down at the BPU is you literally hire a contractor to come in, they'll do a quick audit for you, and they'll come in and they'll change out the lighting and a boiler. That's a great program because it pays up to 70% of it. Fantastic. But if you use that with an ESIP, you can literally use that as part of it because it's still under the envelope of that funding program. So that's, you can use these little things and try to get little things done, but you're going to miss out on other things that could have gotten accomplished. Or use everything and build a bigger project. Combined heat and power, let's talk about that for a few minutes. Because of the hurricane, a lot of people looked around to see who was still running through the storm. Princeton University was running through the storm. Jersey Shore was running through the storm. Atlantic City was running through the storm because they had combined heat and power. It's basically a power plant that produces a thermal load. That thermal load is steam, hot water. So you need to have a place to use the thermal. But when you do that and you generate electricity with the rest of that engine or micro turbine, you have the benefit of lowering your demand to the outside world, so now you can make money on your demand response, and you can also heat buildings, okay? So when you do that, the BPU in its program and with this law says, instead of 15 years, you can push it out to 20 years now to finance this program. Everything works in 20 years. Now, in Brick's particular circumstance, I don't think there's a spot to use it, but I you know, this is a program that I tell everybody about, so I want you all to know about it. Direct install, we just talked about, 70% savings, customer pays the 30%. So that means now you're only financing that 30% of that portion of the project. They're already pre-approved contractors. All the ESCOs already know that as well. So I believe in this area, as far as the plumbing and heating stuff is concerned, Hutchinson is the contractor. Pay performance, we talked about that. All you have to do is save 15%. New construction, we don't have to worry about new construction here, right? Right, Jim? We're not building nothing down?
Could never answer that question for you.
All right, combined heat, we talked about that. I'm sorry that I do this so much, I get ahead of myself on these different. Okay, so negative cash flow, we talked about that. No capital cost avoidance. What a lot of folks come up with, first off, we haven't seen it recently, but when we first started the ESIP program, they said, well, I don't have to pay to that $5,000 a month to have someone keep that boiler running. So I'm going to run that out for the next 15 years. Well, the fact of the matter is once you changed it, you don't have that. But you really can't go out for 15 years on that because that boiler wouldn't have lasted at that rate anyway. So we generally give you 2 years to use those capital avoidance scenarios. SRECs. We talked about solar a couple minutes ago. You cannot use SRECs as a form of funding for this to pay back the loans because it basically fluctuates up and down. We've seen it from 500 down to 100 on a monthly basis now. The independent third-party review, we talked about that, 15 years, but then we can jump up to the 20. So these are the more of the guidelines which you've got on the back of your sheet. You can read those at your leisure. What's important at the very bottom of this line here, though, is the New Jersey Board of Public Utility has the authority to deny any of those incentives. And that makes things work for a lot of people. But it doesn't work if we don't get what we need. So we can get started with the boilerplate that we have on our website, New Jersey Clean Energy, which you've already seen before. That's pretty much the end of my presentation. What I did also want to give you, though, is a couple other things that I like to talk about. If I can find my papers. The choice, as I understand it, that you still have is, or you want to have, is whether or not you should go do it yourself or go through the ESCO program. You don't have a choice. Because you went to the trouble last year of starting out the process and going by ESCO, I'm going to turn this off so nobody calls me. You have to stay in the program. That's part of the law. It literally says it at the beginning of if you read the statute, one way or the other. Once you go one direction, you got to stay there. Now, unfortunately, the decision wasn't made soon enough. September became the date that we said from now on it has to go this way, so that's where we're at. So the next part I think I'd like to do is try to convince you that doing the ESCO method is going to be to your advantage, because I have to approve do-it-yourself, ESIPs, and I have to approve the ESCO method. And I can tell you that I've got 2 projects right now that are having a tough time doing the do-it-yourself program. They've hired their engineers, they've come up with a plan, and they've presented it to me, and I'm telling them no at the moment. One of them is the Freehold Regional District. They've gone to the trouble of going out and getting an engineer, design, so on and so forth. And their third-party auditor is not giving them the approval. So they're going back and forth trying to get to that point where they can have that. Another outfit is down in Stafford Township, and they've just recently sent me their energy savings plan. And I want to read this to you. I'm sorry I'm going to take a few minutes to do it, but this is what an architect has said that I'm going to have to deny because he said it. So let me just read it to you quickly. Since the district has decided to pursue a do-it-yourself ESIP process in accordance with the law, the measurement and verification that is normally required by the ESCO-style contract delivery method is not required. That's not true. One of the benefits of this law says that after the ESCO has done the work, they have to measure it and verify that they are giving you those savings, because that's where that guarantee part comes in. If you don't verify what you've done, how do you know that you've saved? So even in a do-it-yourself scenario, you have to do that. You have to verify whether you've done it or not. The unfortunate thing is the next paragraph that they've got here, and I'll read that to you. In the do-it-yourself ESIP process, the main risk that exists for the district is the implementation of the EMCs, energy conservation measures, do not save the energy that is projected. This could result in a situation where the district would be paying not out of the energy savings, but rather the operational maintenance budget dollars. Engineers and architects do not carry insurance that will provide a guarantee on warranty for the energy savings projected. This risk falls on the district. However, in our experience, when the fees of the ESCOs are compared with the A&E fees, architect and engineer fees, of the do-it-yourself ESIP process, this fee differential can be seen as an insurance policy. There's a sales line if I've ever heard one. They're basically saying to you, you don't get the insurance policy that you get from the ESCO, but we're going to pay less, so it'll be all right. And that's one of the reasons why and this is a reputable architect here in the state of New Jersey, does probably 50 schools. So we're going to be talking at length, because when he's all done with his program, there are 2 years of the 15 years that are in the positive. The other 13 years are in a negative cash flow. That doesn't work either, in his plan that he presented to us. So these are issues that you have to think about. Some more paperwork I'd like to give you here. I've got several copies. I'm going to keep one and hand the president the other ones. These are actual, maybe you want to hand them down in a different direction. These are actual projects over the last couple years that are done and working on the top of the page, or on the first page. And I also gave you the contractors that actually are doing that work. Okay, it gives you an idea of the different sizes of the projects. And then the second page is actual Board of Educations and cities that are in the process as of this year that have bid, that are still in the process of picking out the contractors, and or they're in the process of doing their energy audits. And they range from the city of Newark, not the Board of Education, but the city of Newark's already gone out to bid. We had a senatorial election that kind of slowed things down. As much as Sandy slowed some of the projects down that were involved with the ESA program, elections do the same thing. So the new mayor up there is ready to decide who's going to get the project. I just got that phone call yesterday. City of Atlantic City, Somerset Vocational Schools. Now, just to give you an idea of, well, where is this process going and who's on first, what's on second? Ocean County Votech school system went to the trouble of doing a bid, and they threw the 4 bids out this summer. I had an opportunity to talk to the superintendent of schools at the ASBO League meeting, and I said to him, what's going on? He goes, well, it costs too much. I said, excuse me? Well, it costs too much. I said, Bill, did you look at it? Well, I've been really busy. So that's what it comes down to, folks, is if you go to the trouble of looking at what we're doing here, the fact of the matter is it's not going to be a taxpayer increase. The cost of this is going to be paid for by the energy savings. Now, the next issue that folks have told me over and over again is, well, it costs more with an ESCO than it does to do it by yourself. It used to cost a lot more, okay? I'm not going to kid you. Before I got down at the BPU, there was probably between 60 and 50% costs involved with using an ESCO. In the bids that you got this last year, before you decided not to go any further, the average cost for the ESCO part, I should say, let's go with total fees, ranged from 32.5% down to 26.5%. That includes all your engineering and design, that includes your construction costs, that includes everything. So we're going from a top of, like I said, 32 is the top of the page. 40% is the top, down to 26.5. I think what you're going to find if you do it yourself, you're probably going to be in the 20 to 30% range. And new bids are coming out on a weekly basis, and they're anywhere from the 20 to 30%. Because what's happened is, you could see the jobs that are starting to happen. People are going to work now, and they're actually going out and saying, okay, we could do this, we could do it very well, and our numbers are dropping. So, as much as the cost is important, I think the bigger issue is that we've got buildings out there that for years have sat and have not gotten any kind of energy savings. And the health and safety of the kids is what we got to think about. Last winter, during the storm, Bayonne had boilers that broke down, and they had to pay $20,000 a month for boilers to come in on trailers to heat the schools. Now there's a cost that I find very interesting. How did you come up with $20,000 a month to pay for that if you didn't have money to pay for it to fix it in the first place? Because there's always money for an emergency. This is an opportunity to actually do an energy savings project in this town, in these buildings, and it won't cost the taxpayer any additional money. That's what's important. Two other things I'd like to point out to you. Point Pleasant Borough just passed a referendum. I don't know how they did it, but they did. And they're doing an energy savings program. I figured I was going to get a call last Tuesday, but I didn't, because they won by 94 votes. They're doing a $15 million energy project. And they're doing it with something that I hadn't heard about until after this election, and I actually called up the Department of Education fellow that I know over there, and I asked him, how did you do this? Because the voters are supporting a district that can secure a 40% debt service aid for the next 15 years. Well, what happens is if you get the referendum and you get the money, the state will pay the difference, that 40 cents, 40%. Okay? But you have to get the referendum passed. And in my opinion, and this is a local homeowner, former councilman, that is no longer a councilman because I got a referendum passed, I don't think you're going to get another referendum passed for a long time around here. I really don't. So the real thing is if you've got the money budgeted for something like this, then you can do it that way. But if you don't have the money budgeted, if you don't have that extra cash set aside to pay off a debt for the next 15 years, the only way to do it is to do it this method. And the state legislatures, when they wrote the law and changed the law, knew that. So, any questions? Yes, John.
Mike, you put up 3 scenarios there. A was an ESCO, a single contractor, and they must generate savings.
Yes,
Guaranteed.
absolutely.
Second one was you do it yourself. However,
No, however, you have to generate savings there as well. You have to show the savings as well.
I wrote down, but cannot guarantee the savings.
There is no guarantee.
Right.
But you have to produce it in your ESIP plan, or energy savings plan, to get the approvals to actually go ahead. It cannot be considered an ESIP, an energy savings improvement program, unless it generates savings. Otherwise, it's just another capital budget or a
What's the
capital
difference?
improvement.
What's the difference between doing it yourself and the ESCO then?
You are not hiring a professional to design, build, and provide energy savings guarantee to you. That's the difference. You are going to hire, and do it yourself, you are going to hire a professional to
Right.
design it.
Right.
You are going to hire a general contractor to probably do the work. But
Right.
you cannot get the guaranteed savings.
So, okay, so there's a difference there.
Major.
One you must generate.
No, both you must generate savings. And that's why I'm trying to tell you with the Stanford Township.
Used to.
Stanford Township has suggested to me that they have an energy savings plan, but it doesn't generate savings. It will not be approved. That's why I brought it with me tonight.
Yeah.
So the 3 scenarios are ESCO,
Yeah, then you had the.
the hybrid, which is having that same engineer you probably would have hired to design your whole program for you in the first place, but now he works with you. Okay? Generally at a reduced fee, because they're not designing everything for you. Okay? There's a couple architects out there that do it for 5% of the project. I won't name names, but there are out there. Okay? Are we clear on the 3 methods or not?
I understand. I mean, I can see the 3 methods.
And going back to the hybrid, you're going back to an ESCO, which is going to guarantee you savings again. Now, when I say that you're guaranteeing your savings, because that's part of the law, they have to give you an opportunity to guarantee, and that opportunity is the part right there, because you do have to pay for it. Generally, that's a 1% fee, what I've seen on all of the projects. Some of them I've actually seen 0, depending on how far the ESCO wants to go. Okay? So basically, you're doing a capital improvement that's energy savings, that's you're going to pay for it with your electric and gas bill that you have today, and you're not going to have to ask for a referendum, and the work gets done when you want it to get done. That a lot of folks are like, oh, we can only do this in the summertime. That's not the case. These companies actually work at night. They work to your schedule. They do an awful lot of work over Christmas vacations and teacher vacations and summer vacations. But go.
Generally speaking, and I know you can't speak for all of them, what's the range that the ESCOs are charging as a fee?
That's what I'm telling you. The whole fee right now that I've seen ranges from 20% to 30% on, depending on the size of the project, including construction management, design, and their profit.
Which is roughly what you're paying if you hire someone to oversee the project anyway.
That's what yes, I would think. It started out much different because this ESCO scenario that you're hearing about, and some of you probably for the first time, has been around for 15, 20 years. And it's been around the country. In Pennsylvania, there's none of this RFP stuff. And ESCO will walk in, sit down with Jim or the doc here and say, look, I can save you guys a ton of money. Let me put a package together for you. And you bring it back and they sit down in front of the board here and say, this is your package. That's it. There's no bidding, no nothing. It's just they walk in and I'm going to guarantee you this savings. New Jersey, not used to too many things going wrong, has said, look, let's start out with at least some bidding. Okay, and that's what you have here. We've put down a field of play that says this is the RFP, this is the referendum, the request for proposal program, and that request for proposal, they have to give you your list of ECMs, what they're going to cost, and what they're going to do it for. After that, after you've decided who you're going to do the work with, then it turns into, I got a deal for you, because they're now your contractor that's going to do a design build. They're going to go out and find more energy savings for you other than what you've already seen. They're going to sit down with you and say, this is the Chinese menu. What do you want to do? What don't you want to do? What's more important to you? You know, is this school more important than another school? Sometimes it is. And then they're going to build it out for you. Okay? Go. You don't have to raise your hand, Ms. President.
I just want to be clear on this. The RFP is coming from your office.
We have a boilerplate that to work from, yes.
Okay. And that RFP goes out and ESCO companies respond to it.
Yes.
Now, since it's a boilerplate, are they basically competing with each other to give us the best, for a lack of a better word, bang for our buck? Because it's not tailored in any way.
Correct.
It's not, I mean, you've leveled the playing field.
You've leveled, in my opinion, and this is working with it over the year and a half, 2 years that I've been doing this, the RFP tells you who the players are.
Okay.
There are some large players that come to different school districts to do certain things. Today, I went up to, like I told you, the Newark Board of Education. There were 6 ESCOs there, and there were 30 people in the room. When, what, a year and a half, 2 years ago, we had probably the same amount in your room. I've been to Winslow Township where 2 ESCOs showed up. So, depending on the size of the project, depends on how many people are playing. When you have more people playing, the numbers drop dramatically.
Okay.
But again, what you have to understand is you had some certain ECMs that you showed in the last bid, and some of the bidders bid on stuff that you told them not to bid on. So you have to scratch your head and say, why'd they do that? But that's what the interview process does. The interview process gives you now an opportunity. These are the only players now. Why did you do that? Because Joe over here didn't do it, and this guy came up with this. What is this demand response stuff? What are you doing here? That's where you educate yourself and learn. And that's where the hybrid is a help to you because now you've got a professional that can whisper in your ear and say, ask them this, ask them that.
Now, also, our energy savings plan, if I'm correct, has been done in 2011?
Our local government energy audit was done in August of 2011, correct?
Okay. And we've completed some of the projects that are already on there. So at this point, how do we move forward with,
When you go out with that energy audit that you already have,
right,
you could put a notation on there, completed, completed, completed.
okay,
Okay? Now, and you're going to have to update the last year's bills.
okay.
Is it last year's or 2 years? 2 years' bills. So you're going to do 2013.
So we don't have to do it all over again? It's not, okay,
You're going to be at a disadvantage, though, because some of those things that you've done are probably the, as we call, the low-hanging fruit, the lighting. The lighting is generally an opportunity for you to get something paid back in a year and a half, and that would have helped something that was 20, 22 years old, as far as a payback.
okay.
So you might not have as great an opportunity, but it's an opportunity that you really need to take a look at.
Okay.
Any more questions? Larry, you look like you're dying to ask a question. No?
No,
Okay.
I was
All right.
sat in on the interviews last
Okay.
year.
Very good. Anybody else?
Just real quick with that boilerplate, that's it. Everybody uses the same thing. There's no leeway in that. We can't add if there's something that really
There have-
we know we want to do. We can't incorporate that.
You can put it in, and I'll take a look at it. Because I haven't had an issue with putting additional things in. Understand that there are five or six forms. Those forms we use to grab data, because it's also our responsibility from the BPU and ultimately mine to make sure that we report out to the governor's office in 3 years what happened. So what happened is as much data as I can compile. So I use every single line that I have on the form from every single town out there that's done the work. And in using that, ultimately what I think is going to happen is the bids came in 2 million to 5 million, projects came in 6 to 7 million, and the energy savings were 25%, 40%, whatever they, see where I'm going? That data has to stay the same. If you want to add an additional attorney review, if you want to add something else that, bring it past my desk and we'll take a look at it.
But I mean, as far as if there's a specific project that we want to make sure that whoever it is does that, that's something that with your department's
Yeah,
approval,
you can put that in there, sure.
The template is really just to kind of cover and protect the district on the main things and provide all the information and make sure the project overall is done correctly.
And a perfect example of, what was in the bid and what was the end result of the project is what I just told you about at Ocean Township. It was not in the bid to expend additional energy for air conditioning in that gym. But the end product was, these are the savings that we got from these 4 different buildings. We're going to add air conditioning to this building. It's energy related. It pays for itself in 15 years. It's a go.
So you can make adjustments to
It's that Chinese list that we talked about afterwards.
even if there is something that the architect or whomever sees that there's possibility for savings, that can be added in
Absolutely.
thereafter.
Absolutely. Generally, you do that when you've picked your ESCO, and you send them out to do their final audit, their investment grade audit, and you go, look, and I've been having a problem in this school with this, this, and this. Look into what else you can do for me. And there's a multitude of things you can do.
Mike, I have another question. With the ESCO guaranteeing us our savings, okay? With all the variables that go on, like, let's say, I'm going to hypothetically say the ESCO is basing their savings on maybe the temperature being set at 68 degrees, okay? Let's say somebody jacks the heat up to 72 and that changes a little bit. Or let's say we have a really cold winter with a lot of snow or a really hot summer, you know what I mean? All of these variables.
I'm going to give you another example. I'm going to give you an example.
Okay,
Right now, there's no basketball in any of these in any of these schools at night, as an example.
Okay,
And next year or 3 years from now you got basketball in 5 of them. That's a new energy use. I'm not getting the savings anymore. Well, why aren't you getting the savings anymore? Because you've got a new use in there. The ESCO can't be held responsible for that.
okay.
It's got to be an even playing field. And that's got to be part of Jack's job, to be honest with you. When you're writing up the final contract with these
Okay.
guys, what is our measurement and verification? How are we going to do this? How are we going to prove it out? And I can tell you these guys are experts at, number one, knowing how to do it, and then number two, how to try to get out of it. And that's why you have Jack.
So,
Okay.
Mike,
Yeah.
if I can just ask one follow-up then. That's why you made a specific mention and put emphasis on the offer of the guarantee.
Correct.
Not that it is a ironclad guarantee, get your savings money, everything.
No. The reason I said it the way I did was
Okay.
you are going to be given basically an insurance policy. And again, I've seen it anywhere from 2 to 5%. I'm sorry, 1 to 5% of the cost of the entire job. But that guarantee is a yearly thing. So I tell folks 2 to 3 years into it, you see with the measurement and verification that you've got your savings. You don't have to pay for it anymore. You get rid of it. That's why I made the emphasis on that. Okay? You can pay for it over 15 years. You can write it in the deal that I wanted a 15-year contract and then the option to get out in 2 to 3 years if that's what I choose to do. But that's why I put the emphasis on there. No, I hate using names, but I will use a name because they said it at one of our conferences. Johnson Controls did Barnegat School District, and specifically in one of our seminars said that over the last 15 years, they've only paid 1% out of the billions of dollars of work that they've done across the country. Okay? So they do pay. There are circumstances where things go wrong. Okay? Because what you're doing when you're working with an ESCO is you're working with the newest technologies out there that they're willing to guarantee. As opposed to when you're working with an engineer, I think most of us know that engineers design 10 times over because they don't want, and they don't have a guarantee that they can give you. So they want to give you something tried and true, and sometimes it doesn't work financially. So you want new stuff, and you want a guarantee.
So let me just summarize a few things here. You know, you went through the audit, you put together the RFP last time, and you received your bids. You actually got halfway through the process, and then came analysis paralysis. And unfortunately, I think it's not like buying books or pencils or even a typical service for the school district. You are not looking at the lowest bid here. You are not looking at the highest percentage of markup here. None of that matters. What you're looking for is the best bang for the buck. It's the term you used before. That's exactly what you're looking for. It doesn't matter if somebody wants to charge you 35% fees. If they're giving you the most capital improvements with the best energy savings, that's probably your best choice. Mike mentioned, you know, us tracking this, and it's true, we do track this. We track everything. We track the bids themselves. We know everything that goes on in the industry. And I can tell you it's a self-policing industry. We get analyses like this, okay? From this chart, I can tell you that you only had 3 viable bidders last time. 2 of them should have been excluded. What upsets me, I think, most in this particular town is I headed up the Mayor's Council for Renewable Energy. You have 2 members sitting here tonight, Lou Ionello and John Haifantis, who are recognized energy professionals in New Jersey, okay, willing to sit on your committee. These people can help you through the process. Don't let making a decision like this paralyze the board. Get the RFP on the street, pick the ECMs you want. You can haggle them later. It's not important on that first bid. You still need to get a contract and an investment grade audit. Once you get the investment grade audit, then the board can make some final determinations and Jack can fine tune the contract for you. And that's what the game is really about, getting that investment grade audit done.
How long does that take?
Investment grade audit for a district this size, I would guess it's probably going to take 4 months. They're going to have to go into every single building and look at every single ECM and recalculate what they're showing. I'm sure Michael will agree. What we also see is, despite these numbers here, every single job that comes in, all those jobs are in front of you on that sheet. Once they get through the investment grade audit, most of the jobs double in size. So if somebody here was proposing $9 million, they're probably going to come back at $15 or $16 million. That's what happened in Point Pleasant. It's exactly what happened in Point Pleasant. So you're going to see a lot more improvement. You're going to see a lot more options. But if you stick to your base that you want, okay, and use that as your comparison, then in that interview process, you can go through and decide whether you really want to do windows in Brick High School and look at the payback on those individual measures. Once you get that investment grade audit, you can scratch something out if you don't like it and recalculate the numbers. That's what it's all about.
Thank you.
But you need to get to that point. Any questions?
Just approximately, sorry. Just,
Mr. Panucci?
investment grade audit, approximately how much would that run the district?
I'm sorry?
How much would that run the district?
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
The investment grade audit?
Yes.
For a district this size, again, as Michael said, just like the guarantee, it could run a couple $100,000, and you would ask for that in one of our forms. We have a space for that. Some of the ESCOs will charge you nothing if they get the award. So again, this is something you have to analyze once you get that first round back. And that's part of the analysis, saying, okay, well, these two guys are real close, but this guy's not going to charge us for the investment grade audit.
So theoretically, if you choose to go down this road, you may not have to pay for it at all.
Correct.
Thanks.
Is that something you could incorporate in the RFP so that when people respond?
It is.
Not one of those companies out
It is.
It is in the RFP. It's one of the line items on Form 5. That I do know, Form 5. And there, you will find some that say 0
somewhere.
and some that won't. I'm just
That come in and go through their
to
bill.
do a quick look here. Of,
Oh, they're in here every day,
I don't know whether it was on here.
paying their time. See what I mean?
No, I didn't put it in this particular sheet. But if you look at the last set, you would see that number. But I can tell you that there's 2 ESCOs now that have basically thrown out that cost. It says 0 on every one of their bids. And why? Because it's part of the sales program when you're doing the interview. It's not going to cost you anything. Let me do this for you. And you have to think about that when you're interviewing these folks. All right? We done? I'm going to give you my business card. You got my email on that flyer. I have, my business cards have my cell phone number. I still use the same number when I was a councilman, so you're more than welcome to call me anytime. All right?
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the
Mike.
opportunity of giving you
Thanks, Ed.
what we do.
Thank you.
Happy holidays to you and your family, Michael.
Thank you. You want some more of these flyers to give out to the rest of the staff? I got
Yeah,
hundreds of
give
them.
it, just leave a pile with me in case anybody asks any questions.
Susie
Thank
has
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
You know how to get a hold of me. Merry Christmas. Have a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Any questions, Mike?
Hopefully we were helpful.
Yep.
We don't even need these on.
Mr. Campbell?
Don't forget John Ifantis wants to.
No, I think that I think Mr. Campbell,
No. I'm
you
just
wanted to
saying.
go first or Mr. Hyphantis? Which,
John, do you need that taped up?
Yeah, I don't have a PowerPoint. I have the old method, piece of paper and some tape. I wanted to take about 10 minutes, maybe 15 at the most, to go over the electrical. Is that okay with everybody?
Yep.
All right. Excuse the artistry and playing the mitigating for art lessons. I'm smarter than baseball. As long as they can see it.
Yeah. I think, would everybody agree to sit in the seats here so we could see it a little easier? Because I know I can't see it from here. Whoever would like to sit in the bleacher seats?
I'm good. This is the benefit of sitting at the end of the table.
I can see it right
So,
For the first time ever. This is-
A little history.
No, I can see, I'm good, thank you.
In January of 2012, myself and other PE who volunteered to come and do some work, tried to assess the condition of 5,000-volt underground distribution system. We have pipes in the ground that are probably 50 years old.
Mr. Fantas?
And I assume this building is more than 50
Mike.
years old. Is that a fair statement?
It's not gonna come up. I'll watch it again.
But I am. Did you hear the one about? No, I won't do that. That's his job. So we have an underground distribution system that's for 50 years old. There are 5-inch pipes below ground. They're steel. So after you've been in the ground for steel for 50 years, you can probably imagine what their condition is. We don't know. So one of the things we had done in August of this year was to have a professional come in and test the cables. In other words, put a voltage across the cables and see where they break down. Their response was, we can't do that. They're so weak to start with. If we do a test, we'll damage the cables permanently. So we went out to Concord to get a bid for replacing them, which was a good first step. One of the overviews of this is that JCP&L on the street has a 12,000 volt system. That's their standard pole-mounted distribution system pretty much throughout their territory. When they upgraded this about 20 years ago, this was not upgraded. It stayed at 5,000 volts. So they put in transformers, which sat on a pole out in the parking lot to break the voltage down from 12 to 5. They're at least 20 years old. I don't know exactly how old they were because I don't know when the conversion took place, but they're at least that old. What we don't know about them is, I don't know, is what their capacity is. Is the capacity this going to limit what we do down here, point A? And if this fails after making this $500,000 investment, we're back to square one. So that's something you have to consider in evaluating what steps you want to take next. Getting back to this system, it's 5,000 volts overhead. There's 2 fuses. It goes underground here to the corner of the building. There's an old oil-filled transformer that you can't really get rid of easily because it's got some very dangerous chemicals in it. I would leave it alone if I were you, but I'm not you. Then it goes underground again. There's an outside transformer for the field lighting and a transformer inside here. Now, mind you, all this is at 5,000 volts. One thing you wouldn't do today is put that kind of switchgear inside a school building. It would be outside. The plan we've been presented is to try to pull all the old cable out. Think about that. This is 1,000 feet. That's another 500 feet. Got to get down in a manhole, which, by the way, is full of water, with a machine or a person, try to pull the cable out and pull new cable in behind it. Think about the logistics of that. It may work like a charm. Personally, I doubt it. Okay, that's just me. Inside the building, you have more 5,000 volts. There's a switchgear room here and one over here, underground here. Now, so what would I suggest? I would not suggest, personally, pulling in new cable through old piping. Suppose you damage the cable. Plus, once you make this first cut to do that job, the school is dark. How many weeks? Don't know. Everything goes smoothly? Does it ever go? You've been in construction. No hitches, right? It's going to go, no problem. Have I got a bridge to sell you? So, there is risk and time here. What I'm suggesting is we start here. Underground cable gets buried. It's about 3 feet. You put sand in it, and this is what the utility company does now. If you have a community that you have no overhead wiring, you have buried 12,000 volt cable. That's the standard. You can cut across the parking lot. You can follow the old routing if you wish. Point number 2, you put your outside switchgear somewhere here and get it out of the building completely. Number 3, when all this work is taking place, if you take this route, this does not go dark. You allow about a week or less to switch over from the old stuff to the new stuff and leave the old stuff where it is. Just abandon it in place. Right, let it go, bury it. Now, that's the plan. Between 5K and 12 kV, there is no increase in equipment cost. Because once you get over 5,000, it's all rated for 15. Doesn't make a difference. Cable is the same. The transformers here, here, and here might be higher, might not be. They are so small in the 5,000, 12,000 volt world, they're probably going to be a wash. Labor involved doesn't make much difference. You're still pulling cable. Doesn't make a difference at all. So the incremental cost as far as the hardware is concerned, 0. You have to pay JCP&L some engineering work up here. You got to dig the cables, and that's done quickly. So, summary, leave the old stuff in place, construct this 12 kV system while the school is not dark, cut it over, and get the medium voltage equipment out of the school. Our current plan from Concord doesn't address those issues. I've given you all a copy of my opinion in writing. That's where I stand. Your choice is up to you. Transmission over.
Thank you. Very nice.
So he made this proposition, and he was not happy with Concord's design. So, that's why. New cables to the lights. Well, he's saying paying 100% of 4,100, 50% of C, which is. He did a nice job.
No problem.
So that's.
No problem.
7:30, I want to get a
That wasn't X. No, I think he's saying we can get somebody else.
Mr. Hyphantis, thank you very much for that presentation. Very easy to follow. Old school, very easy to follow.
Great job.
Thank you.
I got some questions,
President?
John.
Yes.
So does Frank. Go
I
ahead.
I think they're actually the same question, so why don't you go ahead?
Okay, so you had mentioned this at the Facilities Committee meeting, and they had the drawings. So you're saying terminate the contract with Concord. Do we still have to get another engineer in to do these plans?
You need somebody, in my opinion, that does this for a living.
And that's not Concord, you're
In my
saying?
opinion, what they given us for a product does not reflect, I have no confidence that the product they gave us reflects this. And as I pointed out in that letter, one of the line items in our RFP that they did not respond to in their response was making the analysis of this system to tell us what that transformer out there does and why we should or should not keep it, number one. And number two, is it gonna inhibit us for future growth because it's too small? That was part of their charge, which they did not execute. The other part of it, gave us a specification, it was cut and pasted from some other New Lisbon school, whatever.
Oh, yeah,
I went
yeah,
through it,
you didn't
and
see.
What I'm saying is that as a practitioner, I would at least have proofread the spec before I gave it to you.
Yeah, it was about this thick, a booklet. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me?
Now.
Now you can, you gotta talk into.
Okay, it was a thick book, and what he's talking about is when you went to the first page, they started talking about New Lisbon School District. So they had cut and pasted somebody else's report, and as you go through, they hadn't really done their homework because there were a lot of pages that referenced another school district.
Reference to other equipment that's not in our program plan at all.
So it's like plagiarism. He should have at least identified this other school district and said, I used theirs and I forgot to change some of them.
It is not unusual to cut and paste specs because that's, none of it's boilerplate.
What you're saying, in your opinion, it wasn't appropriate.
It was sloppy work. Come on. If we expect the students to do that,
You tried,
The
Counsel.
plan to
You tried.
replace the 5 kV cable, we did not say replace it in kind. And this other option is, personally, it's straightforward, that's the way folks do things usually, they bury cable, but nobody uses conduit anymore, it's too expensive to, and it can fail, and you can't get at the cable. When you direct bury, you take the sand out and look for the problem if it's there. And while you're plugging it in, you can't nick it, scratch it, or cut it, just lay it off the machine. But the most important thing, I think, is school is not gonna go dark for X weeks. That may be very meaningful.
That's key.
Crapshoot. It is. And when you get all done, they can completely test the 12-gauge system offline, verify its integrity, and then just reconnect. Yes, you do some other, inside the building, you'll have some other 480-volt stuff to do, whatever. It's different, it's just a different approach that I think has more, it has, one thing going for it, it will cover our long-term growth, if there is any, by getting away from that transformer. But JC will size the conductors to us appropriately. They'll pay for engineering, and they'll do that as part of their job. They'll say, how much do you think you're gonna use in 5 years, 10 years? 50% more, we'll size the cables accordingly, and then you're done. You do the same thing when you're laying
Makes
cable on
lots
the
of sense.
premises too. Size it from what you think the school is gonna, the property is going to need over the long haul.
Well-
Most importantly, and I think not reasonably, get that high voltage step out of the building.
Oh, absolutely.
That's-
Absolutely.
50 years ago, that was
That's-
the norm. It's not the norm now.
I'm scared with that.
were you saying there's PCBs in some of those transformers?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, one of them has, what they call Ascarol oil, which is heavy
Mhm.
PCB.
Yep.
It's the one that's
Loaded with.
right inside, and you should never, first of all, to get rid of it would be very costly.
Oh.
So you're better off just using the place and walking away.
Encapsulate it in cement?
It's already in the cement room. The question is, once you start moving it, then you have another issue.
Yeah.
So
Big
my
issue.
advice is not to move it.
Big issue.
Well, you did make this presentation at the Facilities Committee meeting, and I agreed with you there, but I know there's a lot more engineering expertise amongst the rest of our members, so that I want them to have a chance to hear it.
It's opinion based on my experience. That's what you pay me to do. Pay me to do.
Same thing
Yeah.
here. If I can.
We have the same pay raise.
And I had,
If I were Concord
Go ahead.
Engineering, I would have made this presentation to you before I put it on drawings. To ask what your, that's my opinion. It's a $500,000 job. You deserve the right to see options before you put it to paper.
and I know I had to leave the facilities committee meeting early because of the snow. It got pushed back later in the day. Plan is pretty straightforward, and it makes a heck of a lot of sense. I thank you for it. Just from my perspective, how much money would we be losing just to cut our losses with Concord right now? Ballpark.
I suggest that in the letter. I think we pay all for the one-line diagram they did, we paid for that. The next item was a combination of the specification and drawings. We paid for the drawings, the spec we don't pay for. I think it's the letter. Did you get the copy of the letter?
Yeah, it's 4,100 is item A, and C is 8,000.
About 8,100 based on your calculations.
Okay.
They deserve to be paid for what they did, but
So this is a $500,000 job, $500,000 job, right?
I think we budgeted for 486, is that correct?
So what I'm getting at is the $8,000 to do it right is, in the whole scheme of things, is not that important.
I say you cut your losses and try to find somebody who can do the job. Give them a second chance if you want. It's not up to me to make that decision. I'm just rendering my own personal assessment of what I saw. As a
Okay.
decision.
And one follow-up. Hypothetically speaking, we all say, okay, that makes a heck of a lot of sense. We'll go this way. As far as time frames go, getting somebody to do it this way as opposed to the way Concord wanted it done, is it wrong to assume that this way would be a heck of a lot quicker for a company to get done?
This, it's about,
The way that you presented it tonight,
yes,
as far as condensing time frames to just get it done.
absolutely. When you start pulling cable, there's an unknown. You just bury it brand new. There's no unknowns. You just do it. The only kicker would be making sure that the company plans the route, does the gas checking, and all the things you do when you bury anything.
Right.
Any qualified firm will be able to do.
Okay. Thank you.
So it's quicker installation and also less start time. That's really the trade-off.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Hypantis? No? Mr. Campbell?
John's a blessing in disguise.
I'm a big in the sky. Thank you anyhow.
He's coming over, Walt.
Our technician.
I don't, just pull it in further because I don't want to have to bend over here. Okay. All right. All right. Yeah. All right. All right, to start here, you have a notebook that I gave each individual up here. Please open it to the first page. You'll see a flow chart on capital improvements.
It's yours.
I would, for the time being, I would remove that flow chart from that binder because you're going to use that. I'm going to walk you through this and save the questions to the end. I'm just, hopefully I have them together, right? Everybody have a flow chart? All right, I want to go through all the capital improvements we have done, hope to do, and really we don't have any choice but to go in these different directions because there's no money in this town. We have a problem with mold. We got archaic heating systems. We're under the gun. This isn't something we can push down the road. I like to first go into the flow chart there, which says previous capital improvements 2010-12. If you look at your first sheet there, this is a recapitulation of stuff we have done in the past 2 years. That's just for your own information. I don't want to go over it. But that's what the board has done in the past couple of years. Next, Mr. Reed got this out to us last week, are our ROD grant awards that came through. Has everybody had a chance
Yes.
to see them?
Yep.
All right. As far as how we arrived at those, I gave you 6 sheets, ROD grant considerations. Briefly, look down those sheets and you'll see a pound mark alongside different projects. They are the ROD grants that we submitted. And some of you are going to think, well, what about all those others? The rest of them are going to be pushed forward and hopefully be put into an ESCO, because they're all ESCO related. Now, what we've done, we've been working with a sustainable energy funding advisor, and he's found a way, that's your next sheet there, Sustainable Energy Funding Program. He has found a way through public-private partnership type of an arrangement to take our ROD grants that we owe for our projects through the state, our 60%. He's going to roll those over, instead of a 2-year plan, to a 5-year plan. That's going to free up some money. It's going to free up approximately $6 million. We want to take the $6 million and put it directly into this building here, Brick Township High School. Now, before I get into the history of this project, Brick Township High School, you have some old information here, descriptions and summaries of needs in Brick Township High School. Does everybody see that? Look at the date down the bottom of the page, 2008. Most of this stuff that we're going to have to replace, it's 43, 50 years old then. Add another 6 years on. We're hurting. That's for your leisure. You read and understand why we have to act on Brick Township High School, why it's top priority right now. We have the money. We can put it in there. And if you go to the next page, you have Brick High School Energy Infrastructure Renovation Project. You'll see certain ones that we're highlighting. All these basically will come to about a $6 million package. Now, what we're trying to achieve here is heating and air conditioning in Brick Township High School. We're talking systems in this high school that now are over 50 years old. And there's no dehumidification in this building. When we put in new unit ventilators, 83 of them we have to put in here. They will all have dehumidification processes in them. It's very important. It will have condensing boilers. And probably the most important thing that Mr. Hyvantis will point out to you at any time that he has a chance are the controls. There's $870,000 worth of controls that have to be done for heating, ventilation, other types of motors, anything where you have to control lighting or what have you. That is very important.
Well, what's a condensing boiler?
Condensing boilers are the latest and most energy efficient. They usually run around, what is it, 90%, John? Somewhere up around there. And what they do, they take the excess gas and recycle it and pass it out. You have to have a place for the condensation to run out. But they're very efficient, and they take up almost half the space of our old boilers. There are, in Brick Township, there are 6 boilers. Now, I'd like to go over these. If you turn the page, I think you'll see a schematic there of Brick Township High School. I just left that information in there beforehand on unit ventilators. You don't have to go over that. That's just for your own personal information. But this is the most important part here. On the schematic, what we're planning, first off, every room, basic room that has a number, there's 72 rooms that have to have unit ventilators. There's another 7 that are needed in the 3 cafeterias. That is a total of well over $3.1 million bucks. It's expensive, but that's the heart of it. And then you got to throw in another $865,000 for the boilers. And as I said before, then you got your controls. But anyway, the blue areas represent split systems. They're not tied into your heating system. They're in the offices, the nurse's office, the faculty room. They're very energy efficient, ductless. They have their own little built-in compressors. That takes care of all the front offices, the faculty rooms, any other office that's in the building, teacher's room. Down here in the weight room, coach's room. Very inexpensive. We're talking there about less than $250,000 to do all those.
Well,
And, yeah.
That facilities room by the auditorium, is that the room we always go into for closed session?
The faculty room there, yes.
I thought that was just like a window unit.
Yeah, that's
When
true.
you say a split system, you mean window units?
No. I don't know, we don't have any there. It's, all it is a unit up on the wall, a wall unit.
Like the Sanyo or Mitsubishi unit?
That's it, yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
that-
Looks like a can.
Yeah,
The heating cans.
So that
But the
that
compressor's
room does
outside.
not have one of those.
No, no.
Just so I'm
Now, the other thing is we have to get those split systems in around that room that you just talked about, Lara, as well as the other rooms in that courtyard and the nurse's office in the other courtyard, because they're all new windows. We don't want to be cutting new windows and putting air conditioners in there temporarily. Now, those 2 Oxygon things in the auditorium and the library, they're new air conditioner air handlers. That's included in this too. Now, if you look at the gyms, these aren't air conditioning units, these are just heat ventilation type units, and all we're going to do is replace them in all 3 gyms. You can see the other rooms that we did over, the 11 rooms, the science rooms, they're all air conditioned down. So, you got one side of the building pointing to the other side of the, So we're going to fix that. with that 6 mil, we should just about be able to squeeze it out. Now, the thing you got to keep in mind, I didn't say anything about hot water heaters in there. I didn't say anything about pumps in there. I didn't say anything about the lighting and things of that nature, because they come in an ESCO. Why spend the money if we can get it with an ESCO? And there's no reason. And you're saying, well, we get an ESCO, then why are we doing the boilers? Well, bottom line is you can trade off. Once you get the ESCO in, you can negotiate. And obviously we need a new unit on the north wing of Brick Memorial, since we had problems over there, and it has no dehumidification, so we can trade off. You understand where I'm going with this ESCO? And no, you never will.
You say trade-off. That's a negotiation. You can't predict that ahead of time.
No, when you choose an ESCO,
Yeah.
okay, you sit down and you figure out what ones you can do and can't do. I'm not going to get into it now. I'll talk to you about it when I get done here, please. Now, what I have next if you go, I think the next one I have is what is energy performance contracting? Is that the next one? Okay. That's an ESCO. And I'd suggest, you guys read it over, so you got some more background. Mr. Tulane gave you some knowledge of it, but this will give it to you in detail. And when you get done with that, the most important thing you read is the third page of that ESCO, which states what are the 10 reasons for using an ESCO to upgrade a building. That's 10 points. I'm not going to read them out to you here tonight, but you can read them. But that's the heart and soul of an ESCO. Now, let's go back to the flow chart. You go out for an RFP, you get yourself an ESCO. Now, if you look at those last sheets of energy conservation measures there, there's about 5 or 6 sheets there, that'll give you a pretty good idea of what usually comes out in an ESCO initially. And you'll see for each one of the schools what is available. And it's pretty redundant in each one of the schools. But it's all stuff that has to be done. Trouble is with an ESCO, they do not like to do certain things such as unit ventilators, because there's not a lot of payback on them. They'll do the boilers, they'll do the controls, but they don't like those unit ventilators. Now, if we go into our other 10 schools, we have over 240 unit ventilators that we got to replace. You're talking over a $12 million project. That isn't the $2 million over controls. So, bottom line is we get the ESCO in here, we get what we can without putting out any money. And then some of these ESCOs, what they do, they give you a second phase. And they'll work a lease type of project where you can then go after these things that we need here on the right-hand side of the left-hand side of the flow chart. What happens there, these are all energy efficient type of projects here. This would knock out every school. Every school would be knocked out as far as heating and air conditioning goes. If we went into the second part of this phase with an ESCO and a private-public partnership type of situation. That whole second left-hand corner there, that's about $20 million project. If you could get it tied into an ESCO, that $20 million project, over 15 years, it would cost you $1.5 million a year to get all these schools up to snuff. $1.5 million for 15 years to wipe out your schools. Doc's already taken care of it, a lot of the security part of it, with the doors, the windows. We're getting the security. So we have the envelope, but it's the contents that are hurting. And every one of those schools has electrical problems. Here, look what's happening with brick. Here. But they're all in this situation with circuit panels, fuse panels. Yeah, fuse panels. Circuit panels. They got both, old and new. It's a jury rig. So the other thing that we got to get done are restrooms. Restrooms are atrocious in all the schools. Some of them are, the accessibility has to be taken care of. ESCOs, they'll take care of the fixtures, but not the actual renovation. But it's a great help. Now, the most important thing to remember, I have down here the energy savings. It saves us dollars, but it's twofold. Not only does it save us dollars, it saves us labor cost. The head custodian that runs this place, the labor that is involved with him keeping this heating system going in this building is phenomenal. He does it with glue and chewing gum. And he's going to retire in another year or so. So we got to get going here. But the bottom line is, it's been neglected too long. We have to take care of it now, and we've got to take care of all of it now. Because you don't know what's going to happen down the line. The town here is so political in nature, you just don't know. And that's why we're at where we are now, because of political politics in this town. It's got to be done now. No ifs, ands, and buts. Thank you.
Thanks, Walter.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Campbell? Yes, Mr. Hernandez.
Yes. Yes, please.
Absolutely, come on up. It's good news. Good. Always welcome good news.
Maker now, the battery. I'll do that for you by half price. That's how I do my own.
He's good, Mr. Ifantis.
Okay?
Yeah.
As you may not know, when the ESCOs did their proposals a year ago, they asked Jersey State to provide the numbers for the digital controls, DDC. And 4 of the 5 respondents used Jersey State as their basis. I went over to their office about 4 months ago and I said, does this stuff all work? And they said, no. So we started calling up all the schools, either by landline or by internet or whatever, and found most of them, A, didn't respond, or if they did, the overrides had been in place for years. So you folks have let a contract to Jersey State Controls to go into every school, look at all the controls, fix what they can, well, the punch list of what they need to be fixed. And I suspect what's going to happen is the numbers we've seen for controls in these ESCOs before are going to go down. The ESCO's bid on replacing everything, just gutting it. And Jersey State is convinced that's not necessary. Even some of the older stuff can be fixed. May not be as efficient as the newer stuff, but it's still functional. So I suspect, in the end, the controls port of any of these projects will be more affordable than it was under the LGEA. We're starting with 2 schools with mold problems, which is Drum Point and Memorial. Those are the first 2 on the list. We'll do a school probably every month or so, depending on a lot of factors. We'll get a report every month, which I'll bring to the board, with answers to the questions: what do we got? What do we need? What's it going to cost? So as we go along, we'll have a better idea rather than at the end, looking at a big bulk number, looking at each school independently and decide what we want to do. They strongly suspect that there won't be that much new stuff. Just making the old stuff functional is adequate. No, it's not the latest and greatest, but if it turns the chiller off when it's supposed to be turned off, do you care? No, not really. So I think that's good news. Thanks.
Anyone else with questions or comments?
Well, on the LGEA that Walt proposed, along with the ROD grants, if you put the 2 of them combined and you put it together into the 5-year equipment lease, I think Jim put together something that showed it would be about $2.5 million a year that we would have to fund for putting those 2 projects, the ROD grants and the LGEA Bricktown High School, for Brick Township High School together. So that would be the next 5 years. We're committed to $2.5 million. That's my comment. Thank you.
Now, Larry, I have a question. Is that with using an ESCO or not?
No.
That's
No.
without using an ESCO?
That's the ROD grants that we've already approved and gotten, the state said they'll fund
40%.
40% of them. And I think Jim said he checked with the state and we can do an equipment lease for our share, right?
That's correct.
And then doing the 5-year equipment lease on everything Walt has that he'd like to do for Brick Township High School. That would be the other part of it. So you come up to what?
10 to 11 million with the 5 years.
So,
It will put Brick Township High School in good shape because unit ventilators, brand new, high efficiency ones, with our present electrical system, thank God John's on it, may cause a problem. So this is all tied together. New boilers, new electrical system, ROD grant, new fire alarm system through all this building. So we're going to be in pretty good shape in this building.
So now, I'm confused. With what Larry just said,
Yes,
does that take care of everything in your schematic drawing?
yes,
Okay. Without using an ESCO?
right.
Okay. So you're proposing not to use an ESCO? Is that what I'm confused?
No. That thing for Brick Township is not an ESCO. It's being done by like a private-public partnership. He's going to, expand it out over 5 years, the money. There's
Okay.
When he does that, there's enough extra.
And who is this and where do they get their money from?
It's, the money is raised, they get it, they're non-funding, and they get the money because of the fact it's energy related. They're all sustainable energy programs. We've already been approved, they've already seen our financials, so it's just a matter of working out the schematics. And initially, we were trying to get a pilot program, that's another story through the state, but that was a long, drawn out, ended.
So this is different than that? This
Yes.
is, okay.
The ESCO is separate from this Brick Township. Brick Township High School will benefit some things from the ESCO, but not this. This gets Brick Township High School ready to go, nice learning environment, heating, air conditioning, ready. However, the hallways here do not have air handlers in them. So what's gonna happen on the ESCOs, we get to that second phase on the ESCO, okay, where it's like a lease purchase type of thing, we'll get the air handlers in here for the hallways, so they have proper ventilation. And any other little things that, don't normally get covered by an ESCO. But that second part is different. It's not related to, energy improvement. What they do, they will team up with this public partnership, okay? Take that money, they raise 15, 20 mil. We pay them back 1.5 over the 15 years, and we sit down and decide, what do we want? I gave you some of that stuff there, but there's other things. It doesn't always have to be energy related. Like we could sneak something in there like new bleachers in the auditoriums, not auditoriums, the gyms in here, or a field, football field press box over Brick Memorial, which is in bad shape, or risers on their things over there. It doesn't have to be 100% energy related. That gives us a little latitude.
So then,
But it,
so then we're looking to do both. We're looking to do this equipment lease, and we're looking to incorporate an ESCO with it.
right.
Okay.
In other words, in January, Larry will meet with the Sustainable Energy and some of the committee. We'll get it worked out. They will go get the necessary funding, which takes 60 days. They would like to get started late April with the heating in this building. And they'll get it all done by probably October. Because you can do the boilers anytime, but you gotta wait and do the unit ventilators during the summer. It's a massive project, and it needs, this isn't gonna be done by top and type of operation.
Ask him. I don't know.
Well, is there a particular company in mind? Wouldn't this have to go out to bid? What other, and if there is a particular company, what projects have they done around the state or in other states that would be equivalent to the one of this scope?
We talking the ESCO, we talking here?
We're talking about the ESCOs are the ESCOs. You know, you're gonna with the hybrid,
What
the sustainable thing.
Energy program does, okay? What they do, they raise the money, they hire the general contractor, and they put the stuff out to bid
How do they raise the money?
through private investors.
And how would that be cheaper than us going out to bond it?
Well, the rates are pretty good either way, so the thing is, we don't get involved. We don't get involved in-house. And after some of the things we just went through, why would you want to be involved in-house? We got the electrical problem.
I'm
We're
just-
in the hole for 30,000 on the windows because the architect made a mistake. This is the stuff you gotta worry about. It never goes according to plan.
No, I'm not worried about the plan in so much as I'm worried about the funding source.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just trying to find out if there is a specific company in mind that does this, if they have a track record, how they get those funds, and how they then meet them out to our district to take care of these projects.
As a matter of fact, they're doing one right now in Bayonne. They're renovating a $6 million ice rink that is in Bayonne High School. Larry's familiar with it, and we'll go the same route. So it's being done. We're going to take advantage of that too, hopefully through the lease back. There'll be more particulars on it, Mike, when we meet in January, because this transpired at the last facility committee meeting. We thought we were kind of dead in the water.
Well, one of my big concerns is getting $6 million worth of projects through the building department. Everything still has to go through the building department, has to go down through, get approved by
Yeah.
Trenton. And I expressed my concern at the meeting about all the backup in the building department here in Brick. So I'm not sure you might want to start in April, but I don't think you're going to be able to get it done in April.
Don't know, Larry. We'll
Okay.
see.
At some point, you'll have to say, we'll put this off for a year.
Well, bottom line is, Larry, also, you might want to bite the bullet, or they might want to bite the bullet and roll it into the program, and maybe we go right to, what is it, the DCA? What is it? We can bypass, I know it's a little expensive.
Little, it's a lot.
It's a lot
Yeah.
expensive.
What is it?
Department of Community Affairs.
Community Affairs? And
It's not cheap.
what is it? Do you remember?
And you can't bypass local for inspection, you can only bypass local for review. And the problem that you have with that is when you bypass local for review and then have someone from local do the inspection, the local inspector can comment and ask for things to be different than what was reviewed, which in the end is going to cost you money. So that's why it's always better, it's more practical to have whoever's going to be reviewing to also be inspecting. Ideally, your local
Yeah.
to do this both. Because you don't want to have one person review and another person inspect. That creates problems.
And I have a couple quick questions too. I mean, first, Mr. Campbell, thanks for putting the effort into putting all this together. It's more than appreciated. My only question is, hypothetically, let's say Jack says, yes, we can do it. I know we asked him a while ago. I don't know if we actually got a clear answer on that. Everything works. You can do this. How do those, I don't even know if I'm asking this right, so I'm going to ask Jim. How do those payments for this project today affect our capital in future years? In other words, with the ROD grants, our capital budget for the next 2 years is 14-15. How does this affect 16, 17, 18 going forward with projects we may want to put on with the facility assessment we're doing now? Does that handicap us in any regards? I don't know.
Well,
And if you don't have the answer for that, you know,
I think
you could chew on it.
Is that you're going to what you're doing? And I discussed with Sharon. We discussed this the other day. That what you're doing is you're taking the $2.4 million that we've been budgeting annually for capital projects.
Okay.
And instead of budgeting it in 14 and again in 15 and 16, 17, and 18 for capital projects, you'd be budgeting it for a lease payment. So you'd be doing work in 14 and 15, but then in 16, 17, and 18, you're not going to be able to do any work because the monies that you would have budgeted to do that work is going to have to pay back the lease.
Okay, so for any other schools, hypothetically, we want to do a capital project at Midstreams or Herbertsville Elementary, that would have to go on hold until,
After the 16, 17, 18 school year, because you have you have to pay back the loan over 5 years. And you know, as I shared the schedule with Larry, that it can be done, and the payment, like Larry said, is like $2,422,000 a year. But do realize that because of, and interest rates are good, so you know, with a good interest rate, you're talking about over 5 years paying back $585,000 worth of interest. You know, so there is an expense to doing this. There's
Okay.
$585,000 worth of interest costs built into that 5-year payment.
okay.
So that's $585,000 that if you didn't do that, you could be spending on other things,
All right.
capital projects.
Be about the cheapest amount of interest
So it's
you
you
can
know
get
it's,
over the
it's
next
which direction the board
foreseeable
wants to take.
good
Really, I
4
mean,
years.
there's I see benefits, pros and cons of both ways.
Right.
Well, now, are we subject to change orders and things of that nature, Walt, the way we are now with, you know, the architect that we have? We have $30,000 worth of problems with
You
windows
could,
now,
Walt.
I
You
understand.
could if you run into problems. Because you'd never know what they're gonna run into, and if it does, and it's beyond their control, they will come back to you.
Yeah. And
So
with your old
it's
building.
not locked into that price. That doesn't happen that way. Because the contractor will not do that. Especially with an old building.
Now and then if our lease, taking that further, if our lease payments are 2.4 and we do have these change orders, that's an out-of-pocket expense to the district every time those arise, and they may or may not be budgeted for. Or with these projects, I'm assuming that there would then need to be a line item in the budget to basically plan for the what if, correct?
Contingency, Jim.
Yeah, I mean, you would, typically, when you do a project like this, you're gonna build into the project contingency funds that you're hoping you're not going to use, but if you do use, they're available, and therefore you don't have to come up with the money at a later date.
So I mean, typically with a home renovation, you got a 10% contingency reserve.
Yeah.
You got a school district.
I-
What's your contingency reserve, percentage-wise?
Well, it's every project, so it depends on the project. So
Based on the
typically,
size.
Okay.
We'll do 10%, larger projects, we'll do less. On this project, for these numbers I'm giving you, just so you know, full disclosure, I didn't develop these numbers. The architect hasn't verified these numbers. These were numbers that were given to us at the facilities committee by Mr. Campbell as he was going through these projects. So I don't know
As
how
rough-
accurate the numbers are, or even if there's a contingency built into the numbers at all. I don't know that. I'm just giving you the numbers that were given to us at the facilities committee meeting.
And when we went over it with the architect, we were in, the architect told us whether we were in range or not. That wasn't, you know, we were pretty good, and he made any adjustments that had to be.
It was a best guesstimate of what you felt these would
Yeah, but his
cost.
concern, yeah, the architect, we were in the ballpark.
Yeah, Jerry Rubino has since commented that he has not done any research, or, you know, he doesn't want the numbers that were given at that meeting to be numbers that he owns,
No.
because he hasn't developed any cost estimates for us.
Okay.
And he did say that if we want him to develop cost estimates on this, he can. You know, he will in accordance with his contract with the board. He will develop cost estimates, but he has not done that at this point. So these numbers that we're using right now are estimates that were given at the facilities committee. That's really all they are.
And plus, this company has to come in and survey, they have to bring their engineers in and survey it, see what we can get for the 6 million.
Mr. Campbell, if you don't mind me asking, how is it that because I don't know if this was answered, how is it that we select that company? I'm not familiar with the process. How do we select that company? What's the procurement method that we use to select them?
This Sustainable Energy Group has their own contractors.
Now, how do we select them, though? I mean, there's, you know, Jack, I don't know of any other method. I'm not familiar with a method that we can select them without doing.
We'd have to go, what, to a professional service agreement?
I think the start, from what I gather, because this was talked about, and then it appeared that there wasn't very much progress, but what I'm hearing from Mr. Campbell is they're now doing a project in, was it?
Bayonne.
Bayonne. You know, my thought of hearing that tonight, probably a starting point would be to let's see what process or procedures they went through with Bayonne to procure that project, and what the role of the DOE was in that procurement process. Because I know at one point in time we were talking about a pilot program and the innovative program under DOE, and I don't know if this is part of that, or if it's if it'd be a professional service contract. If you're going to procure it, you'd either go through an RFQ, RFP process, or you do, you know, the traditional not fair and open contract for a professional. But I think the starting point would be to try to get some information about exactly what's going on in Bayonne and how that process is structured and what procurement process they follow.
Yeah, because they're already past the engagement phase of it. They did their resolution, and then their letter of engagement went through, and they're supposed to be moving into, after the first of the year, into the next phase.
So if the board wishes, I will follow up on that and try to get some information and get some documents.
I think that's a good starting
I mean, it
point.
seems like there's a lot of, sounds great. I mean, it just seems like there's a lot of variables that are
Oh, yeah.
out
And
there
anything.
that,
Yeah, it's just like we ran that pilot program all the way up to the state. We got it into the lower echelon of the governor's office. Well, you know, you're a year too early, you know, it's still in legislation, but we might be going to public-private partnerships maybe next year for the secondary schools. They already do it in the higher education field. And you know, this looks like it's an ESCO, but this company was doing things that the ESCO doesn't do. They were cleaning up.
So now, does this company work on higher education institutions, or is really their only kind of footprint in New Jersey that Bayonne ice rink right now?
Right now, it's the Bayonne Ice Rink.
And that's it. That's the only thing that they've. Okay. I mean, $6 million is a lot of money to, you know, to give to somebody for when they've only worked on an ice rink.
They seem to be able to get the funding right.
Yeah. I mean, the one great thing about it right now is at least you're not going to get rates probably as low as you're going to have as far as payback goes right now. You know, and for that 5-year term, I'm sure that they're probably considerably low. I mean, especially for, only about $585,000 worth of interest payback.
Yeah, the current,
thereabout.
actually, the most recent capital lease rates are actually trending better than bonds are.
Yeah.
You can borrow a capital lease at a better rate right now than you can go out to bond. Don't know what's causing that, but they're real close, but the leases are better.
Yeah.
And so the financial advisor from Phoenix is estimating that, he asked, if they want to gauge the market, so when do we think we would be doing this? So I told him that we'd probably be looking to do this in April, is when we'd be looking to obtain our financing.
Mm-hmm.
So his best guesstimate for April 2014 was that the interest rate would probably be around 2%.
Here's something.
I need to use him for my house.
This high school has nothing to do with an ESCO. This is a separate project. However, we can't keep putting off this ESCO. You're gonna have to make up your mind very shortly, because it does take a long period of time. And if you can come up with some other funding to take care of all these school districts, all well and good. But this is a very, very large project. 10 schools. You're talking, the one thing, ESCO, 10, 11 million, another 20 million to take care of electrical, heating in the schools, air conditioning, bathrooms. And you gotta do it. Have no choice. It's just getting worse. And personally, I like to see my grandchildren come through here with something decent. We got one in high school, one in the middle school, a couple in Emma Havens, another one at Osborne. And I'm sick and tired. Not you guys, but what has happened in the past. It's in your laps, unfortunately. That is the problem. All these years, you guys got the short end of the stick. But you can't pass it on. That's the problem. No way in heck you can pass it on.
Well, we could do like everybody else does. We kick the can down the road. No?
I knew I couldn't get through the evening without it. Yes, Larry?
No. Well, one of the things I want to point out, though, is, if you fix up the high school, both high schools, and we did spend a lot of money fixing up Brick Memorial, and you got another $2 million here in ROD grants for Brick Memorial, and it's a newer high school than this one, is that all the people that go to the elementary and middle schools have to come through one of the two high schools. So if you have to do something first, I would think it would be the schools that everybody has to come through first, or last, if you couldn't do everything at once.
Well, you know what the lightning rod is in this town, and the fun of all jokes is Brick Township High School. And you got 3 up there that went to Brick Memorial, so they have no idea what the Brick Township High School is like. They were the elitist.
Well, I used the football analogy at the meeting. I'll use it here so that people at home can hear it. If you're down 30-0, you can't score 30 points on one play. You got to make the play. It's 3 points, 7 points at a time. And we've been trying to do that, Walt, so you know we have. And to try and do it all, to get it through this building department under the conditions that the town is in after Sandy without being, they don't even have a full inspection group in place yet, is going to be very difficult. That's my main concern.
You have to use tenacity. You have to keep at it. It's tiring. Say, I'm retired, and it's tiring doing this. Okay?
One other thing I want to point out, just for the board members, is that I did ask for an update on the current budget for all the accounts, the 800 accounts that we have in the district. And I did go through, and it's not that hard, but when you add up the salary accounts and the benefit accounts, it's still 83% of the budget. So we haven't moved the needle on that number. So there's not a lot of extra things that you can play around with in the budget as far as, you know, coming up with all these other capital projects within the budget.
And like this $6 million on the Frick Township High School, there is wiggle room. I allowed for that. Because there's overlapping of the controls for the unit ventilators and the money put out for just controls in general. There's wiggle room about maybe 150
So, let me ask you, is there any time frame when we're gonna actually start doing something? Or are we just gonna continue to have these meetings where somebody makes a nice presentation, and then when people start arguing back and forth, basically, we're gonna do it this way, or we're gonna do it this way? Has there been any consensus as to what we're gonna do going forward?
Well, yeah, John, I'll answer
wanna
that
move on
question.
this.
I'll answer that question, John. When we have the facilities committee meetings, we have to go over a lot of different reports and how the progress is going on each of these projects. So when you look at this, the page after his flow chart, and you look at the $13 million worth of projects there, those things just don't happen. You know, they have to be reviewed. You have to go over the change orders. You have to put them out to bid. I mean, it's not like we're not doing anything now.
No, I'm not suggesting.
So we have all these, we have 17 Rod Grant projects that we're going to try and do this summer to get through the building department, get them, what do you call it, reviewed, done, inspected, and completed by the time we get back in September. So that's a tall order there. So don't make it out like we're not doing anything. It's where you go after these Rod Grants, because we're pretty much committed our money already for the next two budget cycles.
You know, with Mike and Ed, there's three options. You can do a ESCO, you can do the in-house, or you can do a
No,
hybrid.
they said they're not
Can't do
approving
in-house
in-house
anymore.
for us.
We can't do in-house, so it's ESCOs or the hybrid.
And that's, you know, what you have to decide.
But you can't take the attitude, we'll use $2.5 million this year to fix this, and next year we'll use another $2.5 million to fix this. Man, $2.5 million doesn't go far. That's the problem. You gotta hit a home run. If you don't hit a home run, it's gonna come back and smack you right in the head.
Do we have the long-range facilities
Well,
plan?
can I ask you know,
Long-range facilities plan, it's like he said, everything needs fixing. So, you know, what's the long-range plan? Fix everything.
You got a possibility right there on that flow chart. We just gotta push it.
All right, so, well, we need some answers. Jack's going to research your $6 million project.
We'll meet in January on that.
You know, the ESCO is another option that the board members have to make a decision on. I don't know how that happens, so whatever the president decides is the agenda on that, she decides.
But it also should be pointed out, too, that we have Bob Vogel that's, correct me if I'm wrong, in the beginning of or the middle of a facilities assessment for the whole district?
Middle.
In the middle of. So before you jump to anything, we really need to review that needs assessment and prioritize it as well to coincide with Mr. Campbell's plan and everything else,
Yeah, that dovetails into the long-range facility. plan. I
Correct.
mean, ultimately, you want the
which has to be
long-range facility-
revamped.
Everything does dovetail into the long-range facility project. It's there already.
Do we have a time frame that Mr. Vogel's working under for this assessment?
Not that I could give you, no. I don't know.
Well,
Never.
No, that's
we can't just,
It's,
you know,
all I can tell you is, Ms. Cantillo, is it's been on our agenda. I'm looking for Mr. Reed. Mr. Reed, that's been on the agenda for 6 months now, correct? I mean,
Correct.
the idea was that it was to be done already. It's not. I don't know what to tell you there.
so what are we gonna do about it? We're just,
We-
I mean,
To be-
if
to be
it's
fair,
on the
Mr.
agenda every month,
I know, but to be fair to Mr. Vogel, in the past, the facilities assessment's always been done by the architect. And we paid the professional to do that. The committee decided in the spring of this year that we were no longer gonna pay the architect to do that. We were gonna have it done in-house. Asked Mr. Vogel if he thought that that was something he could do, and he said at that time, yes. But then, since I think a lot has happened over the past few months that Mr. Vogel's been involved in, that has had to take a back seat. So I don't know that it was really.
So the mold problems and everything.
For him to do it,
So-
but
Okay.
at the same time,
It's
I don't know if
understandable.
the time is there to do it.
and I can totally understand that. And that would lead me to believe that if we were ever to try to do all of these projects in-house, if we can't even get an assessment done,
Well,
how would we?
Talk about two different things. If we were going to do these projects in-house, you'd be hiring professionals to do them.
Right, but Mr. Vogel still has to be involved with that, correct?
He's
He
gonna
still has to,
Whatever we do, Mr. Vogel's going to have to be involved in. He's the
Right.
director of facilities. You would want that to happen anyway.
point.
I mean, he's
Well-
going to have to be involved in all of it. I don't see myself not being involved in it either way either. I know Mr. Campbell has told me that I won't be, but I still don't really understand that. I mean, if improvements are going on here in the district, and I'm going to be responsible for certifying and signing checks to pay contractors or pay vendors, I'm going to want to have to verify that the work that they're doing is accurate and complete. You know, so I'm still going to be involved. To me, and I said this to Mr. Reed when we were talking about the ESCO process, my involvement with an ESCO will be no different than my involvement with an architect. I'm going to have to verify that what they're asking to be paid for is accurate.
mm-hmm.
So to me, it's 6 of one and half dozen of another.
Well, I mean, Mr. Tulane and Mr. Mercer didn't really leave us much choice.
I would tell you that I understand that. I
And they
I
just
don't know
gave,
where to go with that. I don't know that I agree with their logic, Ms. Cantillo, is that, you know, if you follow the time frame as far as when we did our RFP, I can't even begin to fathom how they're subjecting that rule to us.
well, I think that they gave the legislation, I think they gave you the law, didn't
Yeah,
they?
that law was passed after our RFPs were taken, so
Yeah,
I don't know how they're applying that to us. It really doesn't make sense.
That's another issue we have to evaluate, because I talked briefly with Jim before the meeting and yesterday about the meeting today. We got to take a look at that. I understand their position is, since you started the process, that now if you're going to go forward, you either have to go forward with an ESCO or that hybrid arrangement. And we just need to check it out. I understand they have rules and regulations now. I'm not sure the timing, when we made our decisions versus when the rules and regulations came in place, and do they actually apply to us? But the other side of the coin is, if those are the folks that actually have to sign off on something you're gonna do, ultimately,
You have to play by their
If
rules.
you're gonna get in there and challenge them, you're certainly not gonna get your projects done in a more timely fashion.
Right.
So we need to take all of that into consideration and going forward.
Jack, am I not seeing something, but the presentation that Mr. Mercer and Mr. Tulane gave led me to believe, what I came away with it, is that a lot of, for lack of a better term, funny business was being done with all of these ESCOs when this first started, when we first went out for RFP. There's been a lot of, let's just say, tightening of the belts and scrutinizing, and they've sort of kind of honed the method in which all of this is being done to protect districts like ours from being taken advantage of, and that's why these set of rules or new, guidelines are in place to keep us from being taken advantage of and having problems like how the evaluations and how the RFPs were answered. There was no rhyme or reason there was no equality in the answers that we got. It was like comparing apples to oranges. Now it looks like the method has been perfected, and the law or whatever rules they gave you are for our protection and doing this in a more efficient manner.
The changes came into effect, I guess, 2012, and then the new rules or guidelines came in this year. And I'm not sure, there's no question, I think, that what I heard him say and what I think we've seen is that what ESCOs were charging has become certainly a lot more favorable to the district.
Right.
With these new regulations and everything else that happened. So in terms of right now, you still, quite frankly, face the issue when you do go out for your RFP, what comes back in. I mean, the bottom line is the RFP that we used that first time had a lot of requirements that quite frankly, the folks that submitted proposals took some of them if they worked and ignored others if they felt it may put them at a disadvantage. So, hopefully, if we do this again, you're going to get a better set of proposals and you're going to get criteria that, are better geared to ranking them and making sure they stick with your requirements. But we're going to have to, that we're going to have to explore. But I think what was said before, you have your ROD grants now, and you have projects on board, so the issue is as we proceed there, where do we go next in terms of the ESCO and in terms of evaluating whether the Sustainable Energy Funding Program, which is being used in Bayonne, is something that could work or we would want to consider here.
Okay,
I think that's where it is. But
Right, so at this point, I think what our next step and what our blueprint is going to be is you are going to look over the rules and regulations that the BPU just gave you. And you're going to go into the Bayonne ice rink and that funding, and you're going to explore that for us and come back with an answer and report back to us as to what your legal opinion is on both.
Right.
Okay, so we all know where we're going from here. Okay, there's no questions. Nobody's not getting anything done. Nobody's just sitting around. We're working on the ROD grant projects, and we're also exploring these two other legalities. Jack is doing that for us. So everybody's clear on what our next steps are. So we're just waiting for the information to come back before we make any other decisions. We need to be educated on this. Okay? Good.
17 ROD grant programs going, just so you know. There's 17 programs going right now. It's a lot.
There are quite a bit. I just have a question, is where does the portion that Mr. Hyphantis talked about with the underground electrical, where does that fit into all of this? That's we're
It's a project that the board approved in the 13, I think about years ago.
Yeah, it's already
13-14 budget, the year that we're
Okay,
in.
so
It's part of the 2.4 million that we're spending this year
okay.
on capital projects.
So we are terminating our contract with
Well-
Concord, or?
Well, I think that's got to be put forth through a board vote, and I think we also have to talk to Jack in regards to whether we have, I know Mr. Hyphantis is recommending that, but I don't know, based upon what I've reviewed, that we have grounds for that. I mean, Concord has never, in my opinion now, and John's probably going to disagree with me, we've never given Concord the opinion that that's what we want to do versus what they've designed for us. They laid out for us in their initial proposal 2 options that they were going to have us consider. We selected one of the options. That option is what they designed, gave it to us for comment. Our comment back to them should be, we don't like that. We want to see the other one and see how that looks, which I don't know is much different than what Mr. Hafantis has presented. I don't agree that we need to go out to a new RFP, hire a new engineer to do this all over. Yeah, do I think their documents were a little bit sloppy and could have been cleaner? Yes, but I've also seen that in draft format from other professionals as well.
Okay, but did they present to us the challenges that Mr. Hyphantis gave us today?
Yeah, actually, they gave it to us in a report at a facilities committee, and the facilities committee, whether it should have been a full board decision, I guess could be argued, but the facilities committee gave direction that that's how we wanted to proceed.
Okay.
And they've designed it accordingly. So I don't know that we can blame them for the steps that they've taken.
Okay, so the facility committee was made aware of what Mr. Hyphantis presented to us tonight.
Yeah,
and the
he presented
facilities
this-
committee opted not to go with that,
No.
I mean, I'm confused.
Back in March, I'm going to go with timeframes here. I think it was in February or March. Concord Engineering presented to the to us a proposal that was vetted through the facilities committee on how to proceed with this project. That direction was taken. They then have since designed documents and specifications based upon that direction. We are now telling them that we don't like that direction, we'd like to change direction, which we have the right to do. I don't think that warrants firing the engineer over.
Okay, but my question is, they're the engineering firm, correct?
Correct.
Shouldn't they have known when they designed or gave
That's
us
not
the
correct.
choices, they shouldn't have known that this was an issue?
They gave us two options, Ms. Cantillo, and one of them was not to use the existing conduit and cabling and to just eliminate it, leave it. I think their proposal says something about vacating it.
Okay.
And instead designing outside transformers, which is very similar to what Mr. Ifantis is talking
Right.
about now.
Right.
We didn't go with that option. I don't know why, but we didn't. But that doesn't mean we can't.
Okay.
What I'm saying is I don't think it warrants firing them over it. In my opinion, other than the fact that they use New Lisbon School in a couple of their specifications rather than Brick Township Board of Education, yeah, that's sloppy. But the design, as Mr. Ifantis said at the Facilities Committee, it's not a bad design. It's just not the design that we should take. It's not the route we should go.
Sharon, can I ask a question? Can I ask a question on that? I have a question on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
On the notes that we have here, it said that the RFP dated February 26th for this project has included load calculations and subsequent recommendations to resolve loading problems on feeders and transformers. However, it states here that that was not included. Is that true that that was not included and it was in the RFP?
I'm not concerned that it was not included, Mrs. Cusinelli, because their response to us actually indicates that they are going to perform all of the work that we said in our RFP we wanted done. So those things were in our RFP that we were requesting. The fact that they didn't restate them, I'm not concerned about. I think that the fact that they have in their proposal that they're going to, under item B, prepare load calculations to determine the current conditions tells me that they did know they had to do that. They were charging us for it.
Does this firm have experience in high voltage engineering?
I don't know that for sure, but I would assume. I mean, they're a very large electrical engineering firm.
Is that something that we can verify, since that seems to be a concern?
Absolutely, we can verify that with them.
Jack, what are your recommendations?
Let me work with, this is the first time I've heard this from Mr. Hafantis, so let me work with Jim, and we'll take a look at the contract, see what your options are. I'm sure you
Okay.
probably have a provision in the contract
Oh, I'm certain.
that gives
Jack-
you the right,
Yeah,
if you want.
I know we have a termination clause in the
term-
contract.
yeah,
That's not an issue.
I
We
understand.
can
And
definitely
the issue
terminate.
is there another alternative, like going back to them and having them redo the design in a way that makes more sense?
I guess maybe I'm just not understanding. They're the professionals. I mean, I'm gonna use an analogy. Jack is our attorney, and we have a lawsuit, and Jack advises us to take this route, and it puts us in jeopardy. We went with our professional opinion, and it was, shouldn't Concord, and maybe I'm not understanding what you're saying. Did they give the option to the facilities committee
In the
to do what Mr. Hyphantis said, and we
Not-
decided against it?
Not exactly the way he's saying, but they gave us two options. One is to replace the existing 5 kV line in its place, and the other was to abandon it and do something completely different. And so we selected option A, not option B. They say in their proposal, we will evaluate and design two different options, which will replace the existing electrical switchgear. So we have I still think, based upon this proposal, that they've given us design option 1 under number A, and we don't like it. So we say, you know what, now we want B,
But Jim, my
Let's see.
point is, why would they give us
because we asked for
an,
it.
an option that
I
really
think-
wasn't the best? Why didn't they just go with,
Well, I think that this option that Mr. Hyphantis is presenting to us, the first time I heard about this option was Monday. And I think Mr. Hyphantis said to us at that time on Monday, was it Monday, Facilities Committee?
I gave Doc Hugh 2 letters. One was 6 weeks.
A week ago.
Oh, so it was a week ago Monday, was
Yeah, I gave
that
him
he just recently learned about this transformer on the pole from JCP&L.
okay, so they didn't know about
Well,
that?
they did. I have to differ with through the chair, please.
Yes.
In the initial report, before we gave them a contract, they noted there was a 250 kVA on the street belonging to JCP&L, so they were aware that it was there.
No, I'm saying that you just, I'm not saying they didn't know, but I didn't, let me clarify, I didn't say that,
Trying to answer the question.
all right, but didn't you just tell us last week at the Facilities Committee that you just learned of that?
I went back and looked at the documents, and I was.
He doesn't make the decision, the board does. Why don't you just tell him, he's gonna research it, the board will make a decision. 'Cause he's
Ms.
throwing it
Cantillo,
out
if
there.
the board wants to terminate, you can take a vote and terminate the contract,
Okay,
and we
what-
can do
no,
that.
no, no,
But
no,
I
no,
don't
I
care, we'll
think
go back
I-
out to RFP. just don't
I
think it's
agree
fair
with
to
you.
the
No,
professional.
what I would
Not
like
give
to
the
do
professional an
is,
opportunity to defend themselves.
go ahead.
Whether you go with Concord or not is not my determination. I don't personally feel that they're the right company, but that's not my determination. That transformer was known about, they knew about it, and maybe in that analysis, they elected to ignore it. I don't think they should, because it's really a key issue. I'm not suggesting to you that you follow my advice to go somewhere else. If they can do the job, and you're happy they can do the job, and you're confident they can do the job, let them do the job. But as it stands right now, what they propose is questionable. I'm being polite. It's questionable. And we should ask for them to take a fresh look at their expense, at this, what I put on the board tonight, and give us an evaluation and say, yeah, I think Hyphantis is full of crap. That's fine. That's what this negotiation process is all about. I don't really care.
Yeah. I mean-
My objective here is to get the best value for the dollar and cover our growth for the future. And if we do that under any scenario, any umbrella, I don't really care.
If I may, in the March 21st meeting agenda, the request for proposal from Concord is in there, and item number 5 is on page 1, does state that Concord says that we can modify, amend, terminate at no cost to us that agreement. So I mean, obviously that's something that Jack's going to review and take a look at, but it is there in that
Confident we can
March.
terminate. If we want to terminate their contract,
We
I'm
can do it,
confident we
yeah.
can.
So, I mean, and not only that, but to Jim's point here, we can amend it as well, that if, like you said, if we don't, we clearly don't like, there is some angst against the option that was presented. So perhaps there is a better option where we don't have to restart the entire process again. I don't know.
I guess I feel a little uneasy with Mr. Hyphantis pointing this out and him realizing that this is the best way to go, but yet the engineering firm that we hired didn't say that this is the best way to go. And obviously, it is the safest way to go. I'm not saying to terminate. All I'm asking is, what's the next step? Is it, Jack, you look at the contract? Because I don't think this board should have to spend another dime to change the course to do it the right way and the safest way, and a way that's going to project,
I mean,
future.
Perhaps the question can be presented to Concord. Well, why was it presented to us to do it in this way in the first place? Are there other options? And then have them lay out maybe more than just an A and B option that is pretty much narrows your choices.
Well, I think Jack has
versus
to.
throwing the baby out with the bathwater, you know?
Could I
Ms.
just
Kendall,
ask one question too?
Sure.
Is there a way of verifying if this company has experience in a high voltage situation like this?
Yeah, I'm gonna ask them for references, as I
For that
took that note
specific
already. I mean,
type of,
I'm gonna ask them if they have experience dealing with high voltage, and if they say yes, I can ask them for references.
yeah, if we,
certainly.
I mean, I would feel better knowing.
But again, I don't know that we need, and I don't mean to be disrespectful in that regard, but I don't think we need Jack to look at this as all. If you want to terminate the contract, I'm confident that we can terminate the contract. That's not an issue. And I'm confident that Concord will walk away and say, fine. I just don't think it's fair in this regard because I have not ever, and I don't think Mr. Ifantis has, unless he's talked to them and I don't know about it, we've never discussed any of this with Concord. This was discussed last week for the first time at the Facilities Committee, that we weren't happy with the direction that they decided to take. We've not discussed this with Concord at all.
Yeah, but Jim, didn't Concord come here and assess this
Yeah.
situation?
They did, and they provided
So-
us options, and we chose one. And what I'm saying is, if we don't like that option now, we definitely have the ability to change that option. At the Facilities Committee meeting, Mr. Hyphantis had indicated that he would tell us the ways that we think, what would our better options be, and I would share that with Concord and get their response, and we would take it from there. We never talked at the Facilities Committee meeting about terminating Concord, that I can
Okay,
recall.
but maybe this is a bad analogy, but, you know, you go to the doctor and the doctor gives you advice, tells you, don't worry about it, the tumor that you have isn't cancerous, don't do anything about it, and then you find out 6 months later
I
that
understand.
you have
So if you don't-
cancer.
So if you don't, so like that
Yeah.
doctor, if you're not comfortable with Concord as your engineer, then we should terminate them, and we should go out to RFP for a new electrical engineer. If you're not, if that's your, I mean, I will take the direction of the board, whatever you feel.
I
I'm
think
not
we need,
here
I
to
think the
defend Concord,
facilities
but I'm just
committee
telling you
needs
that
to look at
I don't
this.
think it's fair to Concord because we've not given them an opportunity to respond.
Well,
I just don't think it's fair. That's all. That's my own
okay,
opinion.
and I appreciate your opinion, but to me, the opportunity that we gave them was when they came in and did their assessment. If their assessment's off target,
No, their assessment's not off target. That's the part I think you're missing, is that they provided us, they did their assessment and provided us two options. And the option we chose is now we wish that we had taken B.
okay, so we made the wrong decision, is that what
We
you're telling
decided
me?
We were gonna go with A. That's what was discussed with the
Well,
facilities
also,
committee,
let's
that we were
point
gonna
out
go with
something
option A.
too. There's no wrong or right decision here with this. And Concord didn't give a bad decision. What Mr. Herfantis is saying, and we're hearing this for the first time last week, is, hey, you know what? I've got a better idea here. That's, if I'm not mistaken anything, am I missing the point with that? That's correct.
Yeah, but Frank, if you're looking at two options that are given to you,
But
And
this
you're- and
option,
they're- and
this
they're-
option's being discussed for the first time.
but why? That's my question.
not an engineer. I
well,
do not know.
that's my whole
That's it.
point.
The
They
engineers,
are
they
the
came out to
engineers.
look
Right,
at
but
it.
I just want to be very clear, and as a
They're
board,
professionals, and they came out to look at it. They should have said, you know what, I see more problems than you are here. I want to just point those out to you. I haven't heard that at all.
okay. But I just,
As a background with construction and I don't know engineering, but that's what I would expect
Right.
as an owner of a company, that if you're a professional engineer, I want to hear what my options are. And let me know what's serious out there.
and I completely
come up.
agree and appreciate that. I just want us to be careful of saying, hey, they gave us a bad idea.
No.
I just want to make
I
sure
just
we're
think
not
they
saying
weren't
that.
fully, I think they were a little sloppy.
apparently
As
we
Jim
have
said,
a
they were
better
little
idea.
sloppy, but I think they could have been a little more thorough. So it's like anything else. You
Yeah.
buy a car, it could be a clunker, another model's a little better.
I just
You may
wanted,
see somebody better
I
out.
just wanted to clarify that, because I like what Mr. Herfantis has said tonight. That's the first time I heard it. It makes a heck of a lot of sense. But that's also not to say that they gave us a lemon, so to speak. Just so happens to be, we may have a
They
better
gave us
idea
the
here.
plum and we were looking for a peach.
You know what? That's better. That's better. It's a better analogy.
But I think that the right way to go here is to go back to Concord and say, hey, we need to talk about this. This is where we are now. We got to get this resolved. What can you do?
At no cost.
And then we can go from there. But I mean, really, and that's something for, I guess, Jim and the
Facilities
Facilities
committee.
Committee. If you need me, I'm always there. But I think you can start there.
Okay.
And you do have, because generally,
I
every
think we
time
should
we
bring
have
them
a
out to our
contract,
facilities.
you-
That'd be my recommendation to the board would be, you should have them come out to a facilities committee meeting, to talk to the board committee.
Well, at the last.
Give them an
facilities-
opportunity to.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we said at the last facilities committee meeting. We said Mr. Ifantis was gonna write up for us what the problems were that we saw. We were gonna share that with them and ask them to come to the next facilities committee meeting to address them. That's
That
where
would-
we left it.
That would be the next step.
So the fact that
board
this
wanna consider.
termination came up today was the first time I saw this.
So when is Concord meeting with the Facilities Committee?
January 13th is our next meeting?
13th, yes,
Okay.
that Monday, Jeff.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's the way we left it with the facilities committee meetings, that we would have them come and address these concerns.
Okay, all right,
Question, through the chair.
yes.
I'd like to ask Mr. Ifantis a question. Your recommendation was to terminate their contract
Yes.
and only pay et cetera, et cetera. What was your recommendation to terminate based on?
The quality of the product that I saw. My
Well-
personal opinion of the quality of the product is my recommendation is that this design reflected to me a lack of experience in handling and designing high voltage systems. One man's opinion, based on what I saw.
And your background is
Electrical engineer.
electrical
I
engineering.
don't do high voltage business as a rule. I have done some, but I'm not the expert. And by the way, I should share, I asked other people I know in the business to give me a look-see. If I described what we had, and they said, why are you doing it that way? So I did seek out other opinions of people who are, for example, the chief engineer at the New Jersey SCA and the Meadowlands high voltage people. So, those are the folks I asked, if you were doing this, how would you do it? Well, okay, they didn't see the prints, they didn't see any of the specs, they just got my description, like you saw tonight, and asked a comment, is there a better way to do this and why? So that's where I'm coming from.
And I'm guessing they don't use Concord.
No, they don't. No.
Okay.
Okay.
That's not a knock on Concord, I don't know.
No,
why,
I have nothing to do with
the
the
folks I
company. I don't know
asked-
anything about them, but,
Folks I asked do business at 100,000 volts.
Yeah.
They're big players, so to them this is peanuts, but their question to me was, why are you doing this way? Well, tell me a better way to do it. And this is how the industry does it. They bury cable, they don't pull cable. You get it done, you do all your construction in parallel and you just cut over and you're done. Which is not what Concord proposed, but I'm not even sure that's part of their other option. I have no idea. But that's my recommendation. As I say,
Well, there are other options.
if you folks feel comfortable they can do it, that's fine.
well,
To
I-
get
I, for
design,
one,
what we
don't feel
need is what the objective is here. I have no dog in this race except that I'm a taxpayer.
It's a good reason.
Thank you, John. Too, John.
Thank you.
Mr. Fantas.
Thank you.
okay, so then Concord is coming to the next facility meeting.
I actually called today and left a message to have them come out. I'm
Okay.
still trying to catch up from last week.
Okay.
So I finally got to that phone call today, and I'm waiting a return call.
You're okay with that, Mr. Reed?
Absolutely.
Okay. Anything else? Anybody else have a comment or question before we close the meeting?
I just thought this was a very informative meeting and gave us all a lot to chew on as a board.
Absolutely.
Instead of segmenting in different committees.
And that's the hard part, because not being in the Facilities Committee, not even knowing half of what Mr. Hyphantis educated us in, and Mr. Campbell, it really was very informative and absolutely a lot to think about, so, and a lot of options. And I would like to thank both of you for your time and your dedication in doing this for us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You know what I'd like to do? If you call for it.
Yes. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
You have a motion.
Second.
Mrs. Carey?
Mr. Talty?
Yes, thank God.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. Cusinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Panucci?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Ms. Cantillo?
Yes.